Washington and Michigan will play each other tonight at NRG Stadium for the right to be called and crowned national champions. The 1 and 2 seeds are meeting in the CFP title game for the first time since 2018, fourth time overall. All three previous meetings featured Alabama and Clemson, with the 2 seed winning. All right, Brady Quinn still here with us to talk about the national championship tonight. And we're going to focus on the quarterbacks here. Let's first start with J.J. McCarthy here, Brady. When you look at J.J.'s skill set, given the offense that he runs, going up against that Husky defense, what does he need to do to play optimally tonight? Well,
let me start off by saying this. J.J. McCarthy can do it all. I mean, he really is. He's an accurate passer. He's got a strong arm. He rips the football downfield when they ask him to throw the football, and he's fast. I mean, when he takes off and runs, whether it's on a pass play or design quarterback run with some sort of quarterback element to it, he's very, very capable of hurting defenses. What he has to do tonight, though, is continue to deliver when called upon. They don't really highlight J.J. McCarthy within this offense. It's more about the team, ball control, the physicality at the line of scrimmage, and really getting the football to the backs, in particular, Blake Corum. And so it's not an easy spot to be in if you're J.J. McCarthy, but he delivers time and time again in the clutch. Take this stat, for example. He had only 22 pass attempts the entire season in the fourth quarter coming into the semifinal game, all right? They were down by a touchdown. He had 9 pass attempts. Think about that. 9 pass attempts in the fourth quarter alone, drives them down. They score a touchdown, tied up, goes into overtime. The rest is history. Every single time he's called upon, he delivers. He's clutch. He needs to keep being a good decision maker, use his legs when asked to, and when he's called upon to throw the football, continue to deliver strikes like he has the entire season.
I think you bring up a good point of what he has to do, because he was in the Heisman conversation first 9 games of the season. They were cruising, building margin and lead, so he really hadn't had a chance to pad the stats, if you will, and really make that resume, but doesn't take anything away from the player himself. So if we go on the flip side, Michael Penix Jr., Heisman runner-up, we know he's got some terrific weapons here, but what about him tonight?
Well, he's got to continue to deliver, in particular those downfield big shots with accuracy, because this is as good of a defense as they've played all year long. Will Johnson, the cornerback for Michigan, may be the best in the country, and he'll be a tough matchup for Rome Odunze, too, when they're on the outside. So he's got to continue to take shots, make big plays, because he's not going to get as many opportunities as he would like. This Michigan offense, they huddle, they're a little more methodical with their approach. They're going to limit the amount of possessions you see, and the defense is going to try to get off the field on third down. So they're going to play you tight. They're going to try to pressure you. They're going to try to beat you up and see if you can take hits and keep delivering time and time again, like we've seen Michael Penix do. And the other thing is a little extra additional pressure on Penix in this game. Dylan Johnson was banged up in the semifinal game. He's expected to play. To what degree, we don't know yet. And if they're losing that battle at the line of scrimmage and they become a one-dimensional team, they're very capable of putting up yards and points and all of that. But it's all going to fall on Michael Penix's shoulders, something we've seen him do the past 2 years. He's just got to continue to do it now versus that Jesse Minter defense, which always is tough for any quarterback to go up against.
We're going to get your pick in just a second, but we do want to target a couple of prop plays, which, again, different books do offer. Some don't. Some states do. Some don't. So look around. Make sure you're fine. The UW prop there, you're going back to Michael Penix Jr. here. How do you want to play that in terms of how you think he'll perform?
Well, look, I think the identity of this offense is really Michael Penix and throwing the football around. That's what Kalen DeVore and Ryan Grubb like to do, and I think that's the way they're going to have to score in this one. Michigan's going to make them one-dimensional and put this game on Michael Penix's shoulders and see if he can deliver that. So the over of 1.5 touchdown passes at -194, at least the last time I checked, to me is the best play, because I don't think Washington's getting held out of the end zone for a couple of touchdowns. And if they're scoring, it's going to be through the air with Michael Penix throwing the football to Odunze, Polk, McMillan, Bernard, whatever the case may be. It will be through the air. He will throw at least 2 touchdown passes in this game.
So on the flip side, if we go with Big Blue, you're not going with your top player prop. You're not going J.J. McCarthy. You're not going Blake Corum.
No.
It's going to be another guy who did score in the game and was a big part there in Roman Wilson.
Yeah, Roman Wilson's the big play wide receiver for Michigan this year. If you look at him, he's got by far and away the most receiving touchdowns. And when they want a target to create a big play, this is the guy to go to. He's a speedster now. He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. It's what, plus 140. You get a little extra juice there on it. But the reality is they will at times have to throw the football in order to keep pace with Washington. I mean, there's not many defenses who've been able to slow this offense down. So when When they do go to the air, it's going to be Roman Wilson. I would not be shocked whatsoever if they don't find a way of running the football, lulling that secondary to sleep, and there you find Roman Wilson creating a way for finding the end zone for a big play.
All right, it's time to get a pick here, and it's interesting because Washington and Kalen DeBoer, for a third straight big game, are underdogs coming into this one. 4.5 points. If anything, it's jumped up to Michigan -5 as opposed to what we saw with Texas, where that number came down a little bit closer to 3.5 or 3. So 4.5 is the spread. The total's at 56 and the hook. Brady, what's the pick going to be for you today?
So it all depends on how you foresee this game going. All right, something's got to give. You got the best pass offense in college football, led by Michael Penix, going up against the #2 defense in all of college football. So something's going to give in this case. I think it's the uniqueness to Michigan's offense that allows Michigan to control this game and ultimately win this game. You don't see many teams that huddle anymore. It puts a lot of pressure on opposing staffs because once they break the huddle, you don't get the chance to change that call. When that team gets to the line of scrimmage, they shift and they motion, you got to go with whatever you went with. It's not like a normal no-huddle offense where they go to the line of scrimmage and they clap and they look for the ball and they turn the sideline and you get the chance to change it. That's not how it works when you play against Michigan. And they limit the amount of possessions that you get. And finally, we've underrated their physicality every single time, myself included. I didn't think they'd be here right now playing against Alabama, who I thought was surging towards the end of the season. They beat them physically for 3 of the 4 quarters and overtime when you go back to that semifinal game. I think that's one of those underrated things that you just don't see a lot in college football. 3 tight end sets, 2 running backs, 2 tight end sets. That's not Washington's style of offense. They don't practice against, they don't play against it very much. So I think Washington will hang in here. I'm taking the points and the Huskies, but I do think Michigan wins this game. And because of that, I think it's a little bit lower scoring game. I like the under 2. I don't think it gets to 30. If it does, then Michigan's in trouble. Because if it's a higher scoring shootout, I don't know that Michigan's going to be able to combat and keep pace with Michael Penix in Washington. But under, and you take the points in Washington, they've defied expectations all year. I'm not sure they get it done in this case, though. Michigan seems like the team that's destined for a national championship.
Typically, in a one standalone game like this, most people like to bet the over. There's already seeing some 55.5s out there in the market. So some people with Brady Quinn talking about pace of play in the under. Brady, certainly appreciate it. We hope for a good game tonight. Maybe a Michigan win, a UW cover, as you talked about. Scan the QR code for the Cover 3 podcast. It's Tom Fornelli, Bud Elliott, Chip Patterson, and Danny Kanell. DK, by the way, in Houston with Josh Pate and Dennis Dodd covering the national championship game.
And just like that, Houston, Texas, the sun has risen on National Championship Monday. Danny Kanell, Josh Pate. Daniel, where is your mind at a few hours before kickoff?
Whew, I tell you what, I have pretty much maintained consistency, and it's been on Michigan, right? But then you start diving in.
Are you
listen to both teams? No, I'm not flip-flopping. No chance. I'm still leaning Michigan, but it does. You watch the interaction between the media and Harbaugh. You watch the way Washington, their approach at media days. You listen to a quiet confidence. You hear Kalen DeBoer mention the chip on the shoulder, and it does bring in some doubt, like, uh-oh, am I really going to do this again, which Washington has reveled in that role of underdog. I still think Michigan has the more complete team. The defense, I think, for Washington is an issue, so I'm standing steadfast with the Michigan Wolverines.
So we're in what we call MPP this late in the season. That is Mama Pate protocol. And so Mama Pate watches college football. Never had a mic in front of her face or anything like that, but she hit me up yesterday and said, why do you keep picking against that Washington team? That Washington team looks really good, and I feel the same way as you, because, spoiler alert, I'm leaning Michigan tonight as well. I have zero confidence. I've had zero confidence on any pick of either of these teams all year, but it's like you can just envision yourself with purple confetti raining down on you, and they've put up 35 or 40, and you realize all of a sudden, oh, that age-old story that I've been taught in playoffs past rung true again. There's a certain level of skill at wide receiver. There's a certain level of poise and skill at quarterback that if you have it, no defense is really stopping you. And by the way, it's probably not going to take them hanging 50 or 55 tonight. I mean, we've watched Michigan all year, and unless they show a version of their offense that we haven't seen, it probably doesn't take that big a number. So let's go this way. If Washington were to do it tonight, how would it happen?
I think it would come a couple different ways. Because like you mentioned, they've won ugly. They've won lower scoring. But I do think they're going to put some points on the board if they win. I think it's another masterful performance from Michael Penix. I don't think it has to be 430, but I think he's got to be 300 plus.
Right.
I think Adunze, McMillan, and Polk all have big days. I don't think they run the ball up the gut right at Michigan. But I think Penix, I think an offensive line handles Jesse Minter's defensive game plan. I think Penix is going to get sacked a few times. I just think it's inevitable, but I also trust them to make the adjustments that are necessary, and he does. I mean, as great as they've been protecting Penix, it's a tribute to the offensive line, but it's also a tribute to the receivers, to Penix, and to Dylan Johnson in the backfield, knowing where to go with the ball quickly, knowing what to do. So I think it's kind of all those things combined, and I think it's a defense that's hanging on for dear life.
So Dylan Johnson going to give it a go tonight, says he doesn't expect to be 100%. He's big in pass pro. We've talked about that earlier this week. Texas got burned a lot last week. Michigan plays, I think, the 7th most zone coverage of any team in the country, and so picture two things happening tonight. Picture Michigan actually getting home with their pass rush as opposed to Texas, who got in the backfield but couldn't get him on the ground last week. That makes a huge difference on 2nd and 3rd down. But if they don't get to him, like, I'm a believer, zone, man, run whatever you want to, you're probably not shutting them down. What if those special teams issues were to all of a sudden crop up? And it's not just a one-game thing, it's a trend all of a sudden in the postseason for Michigan. I think that would probably be the way it happens if it does happen. But you and I are both on Michigan, at least as of this hour.
Right.
So how is it going to happen tonight for Jim Harbaugh?
I think you're going to see a vintage Jim Harbaugh coach team performance. I think the physicality is on display. And I know it's been questioned for Washington, but I think this is a game where Blake Corum, who's been the workhorse, maybe he's bloodied and battered and bruised after the game, but I think it's 30-plus carries. I think even Donovan Edwards comes in to spell him a little bit, but they don't step away from that run game philosophy. I think J.J. McCarthy's probably 18 of 24 for 185, but it's maybe a couple touchdowns through the air based off play action, and the time of possession favors Michigan significantly, and they're able to keep away from Michael Penix and that incredible receiving core.
I think the script for Michigan's obvious because they've duplicated it like 10 or 11 out of 12 weeks this year. I'm very interested if this game gets turned into a Michigan game. I think most people, if we told them tonight the game's going to unfold where Washington doesn't even have their second possession concluded before the start of the second quarter, you think Michigan has kind of locked their jaws into that game. But even if they do, I always go back to that Oregon State game Washington played. It was on the road. We were up there. It was freezing cold. It was raining. It was totally out of their element. A lot of folks, myself included, thought this may be the night they fall because how are you going to throw the ball in this? And they didn't light the world on fire, but they did enough, and they played in someone else's element. They played someone else's game and beat them at their game, and Washington did not face a bad Oregon State team that night. So I would be very fascinated if instead of Michael Penix going for 400-plus and them hanging 40, if they could get into a slugfest with Michigan and somehow come out on top, because we are seeing limited possessions in that kind of game, I think that would be the most ironic but sort of picture-perfect cap to be put on this season for Kalen DeBoer.
No doubt. The other thing, too, is I'll be curious to see if Michigan, I think they're going to come out aggressive. I think they're going to obviously try to get after Penix. But let's say they're up 14-0 or 14-3. Do they keep that mentality? Do they keep coming after him? Because if anybody's prepared, even if it's 21-3 in the second half or 21-7, this team can come back at any moment on 2 possessions. I mean, look at the 2-play drive against Oregon the first time in the regular season when Penix got the ball, 2 plays, bam.
Yep.
They're always going to be in this game no matter what the score is. So does Michigan defensively keep up the intensity and the pressure throughout the game? Because they're going to have to, or else it'll be down to the wire.
And by the way, if you want history and you're otherwise sort of agnostic on this game tonight, a couple reasons to tune in. Either Jim Harbaugh is going to win a national title tonight and then immediately face questions about leaving for the NFL, which, come to think of it, would happen even if he lost, or we'll see Kalen DeBoer with the Pac-12 just fading in the distance saying, here, take a national championship on your way to obscurity. Like, we're seeing history one way or another tonight.
No doubt. And a first-time winner in the 10 years of the college football playoff. We've seen a lot of repeats. We've seen a lot of the same players at the table. No matter what, we get a new national champion. There's storylines that are all over the place, which is what makes this game so compelling and so much fun.
The table is set just a few hours away from kickoff here in Houston. It's Michigan, it's Washington for the national championship.
Josh and Danny, thank you very much. I mentioned the Dodd father. Dennis Dodd is also on site. Check out Late Kick with Josh Pate, taping 3 times a week. Again, I told you 1-2 seeds meeting now for the 4th time overall. The previous 3 meetings, the 2 seed won every single time.